Very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'm Sneha Koshy and you're watching Beyond the Headline. Can the quote-unquote morality compass of a country like India manage to meet its millennials? That's what we are asking tonight as Nitin Gadkari, the Union Minister, has given his guide to love. Do you agree with him? Do you not agree with him? Are you rattled with what he has said? More importantly, how does the legal milieu as well as today's India look at what he has said? Ladies and gentlemen, much of India has a fixation on children. You know this if you're newly married or don't have children for whatever reasons, including choice, or have chosen not to marry either. Nitin Gadkari is the latest to be worried. Not about this age-old trend, rather about you. You not marrying, not having children, and being in relationships beyond the binaries. In a podcast unfiltered by Samdesh, when asked about live-in relationships, he recounted his visit to the United Kingdom, where according to him, the legislators were worried about the rise in live-in relationships over marriages. Goes on to say that live-in relationships are not part of our culture. And then Minister Gadkari, like many of the uncle and aunties around us, said, if you don't marry, how will you have children? What will be their future? Worried over live-in relationships, the Union Minister also said it would lead to collapse of social structure. Addressing whether India needs more or fewer children, the Minister said, that's not the question. It is the duty of parents to have children and raise them properly. The society is stable, according to him, because the proportion of ladies and gents is right. Here's what he goes on to say. Tomorrow, if the proportion of ladies will be 1,500 and men will be 1,000, then we would have to permit men to have, quote-unquote, 2 wives. Polygamy, by the way, for the uninitiated, is illegal in India. Well, a lot of issues and strong opinions, but many ask, does Nitin Gadkari's words marry up with India's legal milieu and India's millennials? Let's have a look. While there is no legal law as such for live-in relationships in India, the Uniform Civil Code is changing the tone. For now, it's implemented in Uttarakhand and mandates or open declaration, prior police or legal permission for couples who want to live in. Legally, though, they do have rights under Domestic Violence Act in India. Recognized, as well as the courts have made some very important rulings where children born to live-in couples are to be considered legitimate. This is quite in contrary to what Nitin Gadkari has concerns about, but we'll get to that in a bit. Women in such relationships are also entitled to maintenance claims. In fact, there are judgments that even state long-term cohabitation to be presumed as marriage, and Article 21, that's right to life, includes cohabitation. Well, that's the legal prism. But when it comes to same-sex marriage, it's not recognized under current laws. The majority view held by Supreme Court was that legalizing same-sex marriage is a matter for Parliament to decide, emphasizing that marriage is traditionally defined as a union between a man and a woman. The minority view advocated by former Chief Justice D.Y. Chandrachud and Justice Kaul supported the idea of extending civil unions to same-sex couples, granting them specific rights akin to those of married couples. And it was in 2018 that homosexuality was decriminalized in India. So, can India's morality and millennials meet? I'm being joined at this point by Khushbu Jain, who's an advocate with the Supreme Court, Subhash Jha, who's an advocate, Manish Barriar, who's a political analyst, as well as Ashish K. I think Ashish K. Agarwal would be joining us in a short while from now. Thank you very much as well. I'm being joined by Tehseen Poonawalla as well. Thank you very much for joining us, all of you. Very good evening. Well, first, let me straight come to you at this point, Tehseen Poonawalla. What do you make out of what you heard Mr. Nitin Gadkari say, or what we are calling as Gadkari's Guide to Love?
I did see snippets of the interview with the concerned YouTuber. By the way, I'm not a fan of the YouTuber. I think he's quite frivolous, and he's not he doesn't have a lot of
Okay,
very
that's not
serious.
the
But
point.
yeah,
We are
but
not
that's not the point.
discussing
But that's
that
not the
at
point.
all.
Yeah, yeah,
Let's
yeah.
stick to the
And so
topic, though.
so I was quite surprised that the honorable minister did do an interview of this sort with this YouTuber. Having said that, I'm not surprised of those views at all from the honorable minister. I mean, he comes from an RSS background. This is what the RSS preaches, and this is and few days ago I was on your show, and I told this that the idea of men who haven't been married. I'm talking about the RSS, various priests, of politicians who want to control the physical anatomy of people, women, and other people. Who somebody loves, how they love, who they are with is not the business of governments, is not the business of priests, is not the business of unmarried men. I think they should stay out of it. As long as people in the relationship are protected by certain guidelines, we must allow people to love. Allowing people not to love is more dangerous than creating the kind of monsters that society tends to create, violent monsters. Let two people love, whether there are people who want to be in a live-in relationship, whether there are people who want to be two men who want to love, two women who want to love. The Supreme Court has upheld this. In fact, we should go out of our way to make sure that the civil rights to people who are in a same-sex relationship is granted to them, so that they have access to insurance for their partners, they have access to healthcare for their partners, and even if a couple's in a live-in relationship, and these laws already exist, um, in case the girlfriend gets pregnant, she has a child, there are laws that already exist that protect it. Also, if there is any sort of physical violence, of any sort of torture, there already exists enough laws to protect the woman or the couple. So I don't know why they have to come from a point of morality. Why should you tell women to have more children, not have children, how to love, who to love, or tell other people? I think the BJP, the RSS, priests, everyone need to just leave the space. And even on the other side, the extremists on the other side. Incidentally, Sneha, this is the one topic where you will have extremists of all religions joining together. They will come on your show and they'll fight with each other. But on this
Hmm.
issue, denying love is what these people will join and unite.
Manish Barriar. Manish Barriar, to what Nitin Gadkari said, and whether it be about marriages, about procreating, and actually bringing everything. Now let's start with marriages, for that matter. We'll get to live-ins in a bit, but okay, live-ins and marriages. I mean, he's equating marriages with the primary concern of, if you don't have children, what will happen? Is that the problem? Is this why the millennials can't relate to adults, for a lack of a better word, or the older generation, because they can't see beyond children in a marriage?
So, good evening to you and to co-panelists and all the viewers. So, on the lighter side, I would say that, he was wondering about whether men would have two wives. So, he assumed that, only men are going to be in relationship and, they are going to marry. So, he's assuming that, same-sex marriages would not happen amongst women. So, that I found it very, very funny, in fact. But then, is he not entitled to his views? I think Tehseen ji was pretty harsh on him, and I don't think it represents a larger BJP or an RSS kind of a view as such. BJP and RSS is more about cultural, and as there is a gradual change in the perceptions of society, I think the party as well as RSS has taken a pretty considered view on things. And all organizations are bound to change, and they also change. So it is something which is his view. We also need to understand his age, his background, and he's entitled to his views. There's nothing wrong in what he's saying. There are two Indias. One India is in which you live, maybe Tehseen ji lives, and maybe, even I, for that matter, I had the privilege to go abroad and study, and we have seen. But there is another India, and he's concerned about that other India, which stays in villages. And he is a very popular leader, so he would be getting a lot of issues related to live-in relationship, a lot of issues related to maybe other social problems. And I think in that context, if you see his concern, and is it not a fact that countries in Europe or in Korea, they are facing issues as far as children, Russia. So you have countries where they are paying now to ensure that you have children. isn't it? Now, we don't see that kind of a clear and present danger now.
Here's the thing.
But I would say that some of them
Tehseen,
are
I
vigilant
know
leaders.
you want to come in, but Manish Barriar,
Hmm.
just a question, just one question. You said his opinion is not that of the BJP, not that of the RSS, but just few days back you had a statement made by Mohan Bhagwat himself, who went on to say that, you must have more children, there must be so on and so forth. So how do you separate these two?
Uh,
Secondly, he's a union minister. He's a union minister who's been winning elections after elections. He's a union minister who's quite cool considering he goes to podcasts. He goes to these podcasts not just about views. He also goes out eating food, telling about his best favorite food. I mean, let's take it. He's not just somebody who's in a different era. He has a very cool avatar, or at least he's trying to portray that very cool avatar. There are young people who consume him, at least what he speaks on all of these podcasts. So that's why he's very popular as well. And he has a huge followers for that matter. So I don't think you can just, isolate him as saying that he is one minister, is entitled to his views, because frankly, several uncle aunties around us all have their views. And that's what
May I
India
make my
largely
point?
is becoming, squishing
So-
people into one.
So I
Yes,
remember
Tehseen,
being a
just a
part of.
minute. Manish, just respond to that.
Yes. So I remember being a part of discussion on what Mohan Bhagwat ji said, and we had discussion on that and the context in which he said, and he was pretty concerned about what's happening in many of the other countries. And we did discuss that there is something called population dividend, which is there, and GDP and many other things. I don't want to get into that because you had an excellent program on that. The second question. So is it that, see, again, I will come back to that. He has followers. He is a union minister. But I think we have to respect him for what he has seen. Now, he has talked about what he saw in UK, right? What the other leaders in UK are saying, and there is a social
That's just
problem.
one part of
And
what he
I
said.
think it's within his right to really discuss a social problem. Is it? I don't think he was
Okay.
he was saying as if this is correct. Now, right? He did not advise anything as such. He just broached an idea and said, look, I'm concerned about it.
No, he said
I
live-in
think well within his
relationships
right.
are wrong. It's against society's rules, not good. But fair enough. You are saying he's entitled to his right. Tehseen Poonawalla, very quickly, and then I can go to the other panelists as well.
The
Tehseen
Honorable
Poonawalla?
Union, thank you. Sneha, thank you. Of course, the Honorable Union Minister is entitled to his rights. Nobody's denying him his rights. But where I disagree with my friend Manish, who's a wonderful, who articulates wonderfully on the show, is there are no two Indias. There is one India run by the Constitution and the Samvithan. And this Constitution gives everybody the right to freedom, equality, liberty, men, women, people of different genders, etc. And we must respect that. You can't say that just because in a village somebody may be uncomfortable with a live-in relationship, it's okay to go out there and take a mob and beat them up because live-in is against society. I'm sorry. Article 21 is the mother of all fundamental rights. And under the mother of all fundamental rights comes the right to life, liberty, and privacy. We can't violate that because somebody in a village is not happy with that, and the union minister decides to go on a moral policing spree on a podcast. Number two, the interview of Mr. Nitin Gadkari was not as an influencer, right? It wasn't because he was some popular a social media star or some food thing. He was being interviewed as a union minister that represents a government point of view. A government where right now the RSS is saying OTT must be censored. A government which is very seen to be very conservative on a lot of liberal personal liberty. When you're a member and a representative of that, it
Okay.
is your duty then to distance yourself from those that take away from liberty. I once again say, time and again, the RSS has stood down on women's sexual rights, on women's rights, and right now, even on people of different genders who want to stay together. That is the view of the RSS, and they must stay away from it. So is it the view of other people from other sides of other religions, and I think you should stay away from that. Let adults do what they want, as long as it's within the law and it doesn't affect society. How does two people living in their house affect
Okay,
society?
Manish Barriar, quick right to
If
respond.
you're in a
Quick right to respond.
relationship, Manish, how does that affect Sneha or me?
So, on one side, Tessenji says inclusivity, accepting divergent views. So I would, put the same yardstick and standard on him. Why not accept what he is saying and accept it as a view which is different from his, and respect that the way he respects. He's not saying that, I don't want that. He just broached that idea, and there are others who may have divergent views, and inclusivity
Okay.
does tell that you have to accept
Okay, I think
country
Manish
for
Barriar's
very, very
line is also frozen.
uncomfortable with living relationships.
Just a second.
And
Okay,
you see
okay, both
now
of you,
a lot
I'll
of
have to
problems.
come back to you.
Just one
Give me
line.
some time.
One line.
Akash K. Agarwal, who's an LGBTQ plus rights activist, also joins us. Good evening, Mr. Akash. Would you give me some minutes? We have two other panelists who are also waiting. So very quickly, let me just go to them and I'll come back to you right after that. Khushbu Jain, it's been a long, drawn legal battle. Let's just look at this, while you have one side which almost fell short of saying that same-sex marriages are okay, the court actually went on to say this should go the legislative route. And then you also have the decriminalization that has of homosexuality that has happened. So these are not the same parallels as it were. They are not meeting at the same place. There seems to be quite a bit of a gap between these two as well. And between all of this, you have what many would say, quote unquote, the moral compass of India. How do you see this move on legally? India is quite different, divergent, and very divided on issues which are also legally settled. Forget about those that are not legally settled.
Okay, to start with, when a Supreme Court says that this is not our purview, this is purview of the parliament to enact the law, one has to understand that when it comes to criminalization, when it comes to putting live-in partners behind the bars because they are living or dehumanizing them or putting to some issues or children born out of that cohabitation, they are not getting the rights, is where the court can enter because that's taking away their basic fundamental right, which is guaranteed under the Constitution under Article 21. So when it comes to protection of those rights is where court has entered. When it comes to decriminalizing same-sex marriages where court can enter, that's not something one can do it. When it comes to the other aspect, where there be an aspect of live-in relationship which can be given a legal status, same as marriage, that's where I think they want that it's not the job of the court, but it is the job of parliament to enact law. Tomorrow, when the court starts doing that, the same parliament, the same people will start saying that you are encroaching upon. The only aspect that comes from the court side was the aspect
Okay,
of
Khushbu Jain, I
making
think there
sure
seems
that
to
all
be a
your
connection
fundamental
issue with you. My team will try and fix this. We'll come back to you. But Subhash Jha, if I can take this to you as well. While my team fixes the audio issue with Khushbu Jain, Subhash Jha, here's a question. So court stops short. Court says that's not our domain. What the legislation does, what the parliament does, makes it even more difficult for people. Look at what's happened in Uttarakhand. It's been debated widely. Why mandate that people must make their personal lives public? Issue statements. Now, what Nitin Gadkari says almost ties in with that. So can you separate it from what the ideology is vis-a-vis how legislations are being made for the 2024 India?
Sneha, I came on your channel, and just before the judgment was to be delivered by a constitution bench of the Supreme Court. And I said precisely what the Supreme Court later on said, that it is not within the domain of the Supreme Court to legislate or decide on the issue whether there has to be same-sex marriage or otherwise. Now, I'm of the firm opinion that this is not the only grey area where the Supreme Court interferes or intervenes in the matter. There are many such areas which are in the exclusive domain of our legislature, with the Supreme Court, in the name of delivering judgments or interpreting the judgments, writing or creating such laws. Now, coming back to the issue, I think we are a little bit digressing from the issue. Now, something which was said by Nitin Gadkari in a podcast perhaps, and that is being blown out of its proportion. He said in the lighter vein that if there are, say, 1,000 men and the population of women increases to 1,500, then there would be one man would be marrying two women. I mean, let us not take it as a pinch of salt. I do not think that we should draw too much read between the lines. The issue is this. Now, so far as the same-sex marriage is concerned, that issue has been resolved by the Supreme Court. Constitution bench said no. Now, ultimately, one day or in the times to come, if our parliament decides that we should have legitimize same-sex marriage, they will do it, certainly. But ultimately, one must see what is our tradition, what is our culture, what is our ethos, what has been, how are you going to have this country? Or can you imagine a country where the children, one doesn't know who the parents are of the children? How are you going to procreate children? Now, therefore, these are the basic issues which needs to be addressed, and Nitin Gadkari said nothing wrong. What he said was absolutely right. And this is our tradition, this is our culture, this is how the country has to have. We can't legitimize.
So Subhash, you took out that issue of one man being given two wives, and you are saying take it with a pinch of salt. He was just saying something. If that's what you're saying, that's just one aspect. And even if you give him the benefit of doubt for saying something out of his hat, just spewing something out of his mouth, which as a minister he shouldn't. But even if you push me to the edge to say that's a benefit of doubt, give him the benefit of doubt, he was just saying something. I mean, you are talking about culture, you're talking about tradition. Now, Supreme Court and what the Supreme Court says very much becomes part of the Indian tradition and culture. Subhasha, please allow me. What has the Supreme Court, what have the courts at different points said? Court has said children out of in live-in relationships must be considered legitimate. Women are entitled to maintenance claim. Long-term cohabitation is presumed marriage. Article 21, right to life, includes cohabitation. Is this not part of Indian tradition then? Is this not part of Indian culture if the court goes on to say these statements?
In my assessment, in all these areas, the Supreme Court had no business to venture into. They unnecessarily encroached on the field which is in the domain of our legislature. They should have left it better for the legislature to decide and embark upon and to decide, deliberate and take a decision on that. In my assessment, there are many such areas where the Supreme Court has been interpreting the law which they should not have done.
Khushbu Jain, would you want to come in as a advocate yourself? Subhash Jha says a very interesting thing. He says what the judiciary has done is in excess. It was beyond its jurisdiction. It should have just allowed the legislature to do its job. But here you have Supreme Court making some very strong statements. In not just the Supreme Court, in fact, courts across the country have made some very strong statements. Particularly, we're talking about live-in relationships. So isn't that part of Indian culture then? Shouldn't that become part of Indian tradition then?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you over here. I think I absolutely do not agree with the earlier panelist. How can you talk about something like that? See, Supreme Court never went in making a law. Supreme Court kept on asking the laws, the rights which are guaranteed under Constitution, the rights which, the liberty which you and me enjoy. That is my choice to choose the partner who I want to be with, my choice who I want to continue with. And for that, if you're dehumanizing it, you're criminalizing somebody for that choice, which is guaranteed in the Constitution to me to make it. At that time is where Constitution, the Supreme Court is entering, because at last it's a custodian of Indian Constitution. It has to enter if your and my fundamental rights are taken away. That's where the court has to enter and interfere at that time. This is something which Parliament should have done at long back. You are closing your eyes to things which are already existing. This is not a creation of today that I'm creating something, or I'm saying that this has to happen or not happen. You're practically telling a person that who the person should live with or not live with, how it is a matter of a state. You are seeing how things are happening. There have been instances where a child is born out of a live-in relationship. What are the rights that has to be given? Where there is an aspect of alimony, the court have entered and given the rights or recognition to that aspect. How can you today close your eyes? You look into those aspects, you create a legislation which can cover all these lacunas, all these areas, and have that legislation enacted. But you are practically, Mr. Jha is trying to say that court should have not exercised that right, where your fundamental right is taken away. The court has to enter over there to protect that fundamental right of a citizen. That's the duty of the court to practically do that.
Subhasha, you have a right to respond. Please respond. And I would like to go to Akash K. Agrawal after this. So Subhasha, please respond.
Yeah.
So you're essentially saying judiciary should not have done what it does.
I'll
and here you have an...
I will. I will deal with that like this.
Go
See,
ahead,
look at
Subhasha, go
Article
ahead.
44 of the Constitution of India. Article 44 mandates Uniform Civil Code. Now, UCC has been hanging fire for last 74
It doesn't
74
mandate.
years
Difference
now.
between
It doesn't
fundamental
mandate.
rights.
1950, we had
Sir, you need to
It's
constitution
a
understand
that was
the
in
directive.
place.
context. And I'm
But
talking
No,
about
then,
it
fundamental
does
rights.
not
even
mandate.
once, not
It's a
even.
I'm talking about
directive.
fundamental
Listen.
rights.
Just
Are you
wait,
It
just
is
wait.
not a
Just
mandate.
right?
What? Just wait, please, just wait. Now, Article 44 is in clear terms says that it is the duty of every state to enact law, which will be called Uniform Civil Code, Uniform Civil Code. Now, therefore, do we have that in our country even today? Now, look at what happens even after Justice Y.V. Chandrachud, as he then was. The Supreme Court has been making a request to the government to enact a law. But whereas selectively the Supreme Court, I'm so sorry to say, the Supreme Court selectively has been passing orders. Now, why not to pass orders in such a case where the Constitution itself provides for uniform civil code, common uniform civil code? It did not do it. But
All right. I'm going to hold that thought there. I'm going to return to this because it is important. But before I go to others, and I know Tehseen and Khushbu both want to come into this, but remember, since you spoke about directive principles of state policy, it says state must strive. It does not say it is mandated for state. Big difference, Subhash Jha, but I will get to that in a bit. Very quickly, at this point, let me go to Akash K. Agarwal. Akash K. Agarwal, thank you for your patience. Thank you for listening to it all. You're a person who possibly is right at the center of all that has been discussed. How do you really look at what Nitin Gadkari has spoken? Firstly, does it matter to you? Does it affect you? Please tell me.
To be honest, I'm having a laugh onto your co-panelist as of now because what they are telling and speaking and sharing on this panel is nothing but absolute ridicule attitude towards people like us. To be frank and with due respect to any of them who get offended, because that's not the idea, but if they get offended, doesn't matter to me because they're right now sitting on their comfort cushions, offending my identity and my existence, and many like me. To address the fact that how Mr. Gadkari said and what he said, it doesn't surprises me because the breaking news could have been if he would have fallen out of the line of the whole idea. They fought against us it was absolutely centered against us. So if Mr. Gadkari could have fallen out of that whole homophobic idea, it would have been a bigger breaking news to me. So I'm not amused in that space. I would like to revert to two of your panelists who said, please take it light, take him light. And Mr. Gadkari might have said to Manish, who said Mr. Gadkari might not have met and consider his age and consider the fact that the change will take its own course. How much time does people like them need time for us to let कितने बच्चे और मरेंगे इसमें कितने बच्चे और खुदकुशी करेंगे कितने बच्चे 16-17 साल की उम्र में अपने घरों से धक्के खाएंगे क्योंकि वो हम जैसे सब लेंगे के कितने बच्चों को ये समाज में हिस्सा नहीं देंगे और ये कहेंगे कि नहीं you should be on the outer skirts from the mainstream society because your sexuality is not mainstream enough. The whole idea is that it is an absolute patriarchal and it is absolutely a very, I should say, it's a very secluded idea of us and our kinds to live and let live, and others should not be embraced. The whole idea of their fear and their phobia to diversity of any kind, whether it's sex, gender, religion, or others, is very prevalent. So I do not want to get into the fact that why they're doing this, because that is their politics and that is their ideology, which got them where they are. But to Mr. Jha, who said, what will happen to our world and country and what will happen to our हमारे समाज का क्या होगा धर्म का क्या होगा and all of that, But the fact is that the whole idea for us as human is to just to procreate, because even a dog and can also procreate. Are we not human enough? Our senses are not further bigger, better enough than any animal, because even they procreate and we procreate. Is the whole idea is just to procreation. Now, the second thing is when they say कि हमारे समाज का क्या होगा? कौन सा समाज जहाँ पर आज भी भूखमरी है, जहाँ पे we are underdeveloped, nourished? What kind of a future are we giving to this kids today? I find their idea of justifying a homophobic comment like this or an attitude like this absolutely ridiculous and homophobic in itself.
Manish Barriar, do you want to come in at this point, Manish Barriar? I mean, let's just listen to what Akash said. And let's just look at what Nitin Gadkari said. What really does happen? Does it percolate down? See, you may agree with something that's happening. You may like it. You may not like it. But when a minister like this speaks what he does, isn't the fact that rights, protection, legality is a necessity, irrespective of whether you like it or not like it, a fundamental right for anybody? And isn't that where Nitin Gadkari missed the mark?
So Shreya ji, first of all, let me just, because Akash took my name, so because you don't know me personally, I'm all with you, right, and for your rights. So don't get me wrong. And when I made a statement, it was never against your rights. So please do not misunderstand me. My views are not, everything what Nitin Gadkari ji was saying. So I need to clarify on that, right? What I pointed was that
no, fair enough. I accept your clarification, but here's what happens, Manish Barriar. Because you're here defending Nitin Gadkari, there are others like Akash who are thinking that this is what it is. You understand how it percolates. You know this better than me.
No, but then my point was, what I am trying to say is that, Akash is suffering from, and I'm not, demonizing him, persecution complex. I don't like that.
Suffering. Can I come in?
Right.
Can I come in?
You're different.
Manish Barriar, that's hard when people don't even have the basic rights. You're causing it persecution complex. Tehseen, before I come to you very quickly, Akash, you have a right to respond.
I'm not completing.
Okay, Manish Barriar, complete your sentence and I will go to Akash after that.
Yeah, you can go to that. My only difference in opinion is that you're different, right? You're fighting for your rights. We are there with you, but then don't point fingers at others. There are a lot of groups, social groups in our country, all over the world. They've fought there for their rights with dignity, not by demonizing others, not by pinpointing figures.
Manish Barriar, I don't think Akash is demonizing. I think if there is somebody who was demonizing something, it is somebody who spoke in a YouTube podcast.
I saw Akash.
Akash, very quickly, your right to respond.
It is, I don't know better terminology
for Mr. Subhash Jha. I don't like that.
Now, can I speak and can I just say one thing to you? That trust
Akash,
me, we don't need you. We don't need anybody who justifies injustice to any human of any kind. I'm not here just sitting for my own rights. I'll be available there for any kinds of human rights issue. It is not about an LGBTQ rights issue. And you have to understand, L stands for lesbians and gay stands for gays, right? G. And this means there are men and women both involved in this journey as well. So don't think that we will be not standing with men in their problems, or we will not be standing with women in their women rights issue. So it's a societal issue. So when you tell me that we are only fighting for the LGBTQ rights, that whole idea of you othering us is itself not great. A. B. Am I really dehumanizing you, or is it your attitude to tell me that let it take its own course and let it take its own time and don't be in a hurry and give some time to people like Mr. Gadkari to soak in and to understand that how society will... Who is dehumanizing and whom? Are you not losing your kids on an average in school suicides and it's trigger-boggering, or they're getting raped on the streets because they're transgenders, or they've been brutalized, dehumanized on the streets? in the most happening metropolitan cities of this country. So, what are you talking about dehumanization? It's you at your comfort space, which is just not actually were able to understand what we go through.
Okay,
Your
all right.
opinion on our life
Okay,
matters
okay.
not to us.
Akash,
We forget it.
Akash, I'll go to Manish Barriar, but before I go to Manish Barriar, Tehseen Poonawalla, persecution complex.
Now, listen, Akash, more power to you. You're not another. You're one of us. We are all human beings at the end of the day. Who you have any relationship with or choose not to have a relationship with is your problem, is none of our problem. And we need to stop moral policing you or telling you what to do, what not to do. What is our duty as society is to stand up for your rights, your human rights. And that is part of Article 21 that we stand up for. As for the other, Mr. Jha, the advocate who said that, oh, UCC, one, you're right, UCC is not mandatory, but whatever the government does not do. You already have in India Special Marriage Act, Sneha, and we've discussed that enough. From Jammu and Kashmir to Kanyakumari, from Manipur to Mumbai, those who want to get married in that act and have one law across the country, including for marriage, divorce, inheritance, etc. And we have an inheritance law. Please get married under that. That is not what we are discussing. We're moving away from the discussion. What we are discussing is for how long will people who are influential, whether it be Mohan Bhagwatji, whether it be the Honorable Minister, whether it be people from other religion, start telling women, start telling citizens what to do and how to live their lives. You have to stop it. If you have a point of view, we understand that. But when you start saying that another point of view is moralistic wrong, when you come from a position of power, it is othering the other person. It gives incentives to mobs, and that's what's happening. Mirror now has covered several cases where mobs have come into love marriages and they've tried to stop it down. There are several cases where mobs have entered people's house and you try to attempt to bring in a UCC in Uttarakhand. It's not a UCC where people who are living in can be criminally prosecuted if they don't register they live in. Can you believe it? What a bankrupt government this is? This is the government not just in your bedroom, this is the government literally in your bed. I think we need less of government, more of governance, and most of empathy.
Manish Barriar, please respond.
Is it me? Yeah. So, I would largely agree with what Tehseen is saying. I'm for the rights of the people, but I have a slight difference of opinion, and especially when it comes to Uttarakhand about live-in relationship, because I also know of a lot of cases where young people have exploited women, and a lot of village girls, unfortunately, they fell prey to men, and then they filed cases. A lot of times cases of rape has been filed when the things were consensual, and every day we find that. What is wrong with the government? Right, the government doesn't say that you do not have the right to live in relationship. When the government says that you need to register, or let's take up put it as a part of a legal process, I don't think anything they are trying to criminalize anything or something, because government is also a mirror of the society, and when they find cases like these, it is well within their rights, and it's also in the people's court. If the people of Uttarakhand says no, it is something, it is not, I think they will reflect it politically as well as from civil society groups. So I think this is a beginning, and let's see that how
Manish
it goes.
Barriar, can I ask you a
But to really
question?
reject it outright.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, please.
Do we because you say you stand for everybody's rights, can I ask you a question? Two things. One, you said girls are trapped. There are a lot of things that go wrong with live-in relationships. All of that also happens in marriages.
Absolutely.
Second question. Do we understand how many live-in relationships, people in live-in relationships can come out in the open? Now, instead of providing them safety and a safe ecosystem to be able to decide to continue in a live-in relationship or not, that is their choice. It is their choice, it is their moral compass, if that is the moral compass that everybody is talking about. Manish Barriar, this is putting them right before them. Everybody will know who's in the live-in relationship. What are we talking about, Manish Barriar? Is this protection?
So, Sneha, my point is that exactly that.
I don't want to digress. This is quite honestly digressing, but since you made the points.
It's okay. I respect your views, but why you have to hide if you are in a live-in relationship? You need to understand.
No, it's not my views. I'm just asking questions.
So, why you have to hide? I don't understand. What is so secret about
Right to privacy?
being in a live-in relationship?
Because of right to privacy, I don't want to tell. No, Manish Bhai, just Manish Bhai. Assuming XYZ is in a live-in relationship with another girl, he does not want his family, he doesn't want anyone to know, she doesn't want her friends to know. It is two
Then
adults
why?
who decide to
Okay.
be in a consensual relationship. Why does the Chief Minister of Uttarakhand want to know?
Then
If
in
she didn't
that
want her
case,
family to know.
why do you want rights of safety, legal rights? If you want to
This is
hide
so
it, then why do
basic.
you
One
insist?
second, Manish
And
Bhai.
I'm for
This
all
is
the
so
legal rights.
Manish
I'm
Barriar,
surprised I have to
just
say this.
few
One
months
second, Sneha.
back,
Come on.
there was a
May
couple
not
who
have,
went
may
and
just say this.
knocked at the
Cannot have
court's
everything
door
to
One
saying,
second.
please
Let me
give us
advise this.
protection because we want to go and get married
second,
this
Manish Bhai.
after they registered
Okay, I have-
Yes.
registered for
I
their
have a con-
marriage.
I
But
have a
anyway,
concept,
Subhash
Manish
Rao,
Bhai.
you
May I
have a
make
right
one
to
point?
respond.
Just
A lot
one
was said about
point,
you
one
as
point.
well, about your
Manish
opinion,
Bhai.
Subhash Rao. Very quickly, please.
Food for
Just
thought
one
for
point,
both
Manish
of
Bhai.
you.
I may
We're totally
not
running
want
out
to.
of time.
I may not.
This is
Sneha,
stretched
just
beyond
one
our
minute.
mandate. Tehseen,
Manish
not even
Bhai,
30
Manish Bhai.
seconds.
Just 10 seconds. Less than 10 seconds.
Can
Manish Bhai, I may not want to
can
know.
I come in for a
I may
minute?
not want to know you, or you may not want to know me. But that still gives you protection if I come and assault you. That is different. That is human rights. Those are different. And we cannot conflate the two, Manish Bhai.
Okay, I have only
Okay, I'm
one
totally
food
out of
for
time.
thought for
Subhash Rao,
you.
please. Since your name was dragged in, you have a right to respond. Subhash Rao, go ahead.
No, I wouldn't know because I had lost the audio for some time. But nevertheless, coming back to the issue, see, we are oldest civilization in the world, and our country has been in existence for centuries, and the system have been followed. What system of marriage institution which we have in our country has been followed for years together. It subsisted, it survived all sort of onslaught. Let us not destroy our institution of marriages. Let it continue the way it has continued, survived and subsisted for such a long period of time. Please do not. If you may have your own ideas, these are funny ideas, and these funny ideas be kept with themselves. Don't impose upon us or the country.
Manish, all right. Akash, please respond.
I would only in a lighter mode because people are justifying how one can be wicked and still be considered light. You know how our civilization lived so long, Mr. Jha? Because people like you used to go at the age of 45 to Himalayas and let the world be in its own way. It's time for you to retire with your opinion and go and stay in Himalaya and let us be at our age, decide who and how we will live. You forgotten that? आपकी उम्र अब हिमालय पे जाके यहाँ का मोह माया छोड़ने की है. आपके पूर्वज तो ये करते थे, आप कब करेंगे? और हमें हमारा जीवन कब जीने देंगे? Because that's how the civilization was, right? So when are you packing your bags and leaving your opinion?
Okay, Akash,
right up
I wanted to
on your
end
back?
with you, but I will have to go back to Subhash Rao. Subhash Rao, please
Akash Agarwal,
respond. Essentially, Akash is meaning,
आकाश अग्रवाल,
please live
मैंने
and
अभी
let
तक
them let
आपका
the
नाम नहीं
others
लिया,
live.
ना ही आपके बारे में कुछ
आप
कहा
ले
है.
सकते हैं. आप
मैं
ले सकते हैं.
अब आप मुझे ये कहने के लिए मजबूर कर रहे हैं कि आपकी जो बीमारी है वो मानसिक बीमारी है, उसका इलाज करिए, उसका ट्रीटमेंट करवाइए, उसकी वैक्सीन लीजिए. आप जैसे लोगों ने इस देश की सभ्यता और संस्कृति को बर्बाद और तबाह करने का पाप किया है. इनसे दूर रहिए. इन सब अपने गंदे विचारों को इस देश के ऊपर थोपने का अनर्गल प्रयत्न न करें. आप तो अच्छा है. और मैं कहाँ जाऊंगा? हिमालय में जाऊंगा.
What we really are looking at this point and in this discussion is something hugely important, and that is about how words matter. Words matter when Union Minister speaks, and words matter.
No. Sneha, it was not a personal comment against him. It was a comment against the thought that there'll be people who will run over our lives and will dominate and who would command us how to live. It is actually for them to actually chuck off the whole fact. They cannot anymore hold us and make us responsible of how they
I'm
want
totally
us
out
to
of
live.
this time. But one thing I would want to end this show with, it is not a sickness. It is a choice. And everybody has a right to appreciate it, to not appreciate it, to like it, to not like it. But nobody has the right to take away the right to safety in a country like India and a right to make a choice. I think that's where we can leave it Politics will have its course. Politics will play with its words. But I think citizens and their rights are important. Khushbu Jain, Subhash Jha, Manish Barriar, Tehseen Poonawalla, and Akash Agarwal, thank you very much for your time. It's time for a very short break. On the other side, we'll bring you all the latest.